Dragon Riders, Kaze no Kaeru, by Night Dragon Zero. I soon realized my problems didn't go to that extent. There was much more impeding dangers to worry about. The faint rustling of leaves drew me away from my pondering. Too distracted by my own thoughts, I'd never heard them coming. This was a wild scyther swarm. I gulped and looked around. I was surrounded, and the other scyther saw me as only one thing: an intruder. Night Slice's perspective. It was a short swim out of the cave, just as Euphoria had said. I practiced balancing and walking along the beach for a while before moving on. Things were actually looking up for me. I was whistling to myself as I trekked through the forest. Alagard and his band would be searching for a scyther who no longer existed. Neither him, Team Rocket, nor anyone else could recognize me for that matter. Now I could go about my own business, not having to worry about hurting anyone or any stupid prophecy. Dragon gods and all were out of my world for good. I just needed something to get started with my new life. I figured I should head to the nearest town and come up with some convincing story. I could easily say I was from some isolated island in the Orange Archipelago where they didn't have any way to sign up for trainer licenses and get one for myself. Then I'll start training Pokemon myself, and they'll never know why I'll hit the tops in record-breaking time. That thought made me laugh out loud. And maybe, if I find a nice quiet place to settle down, I'll sign up with a local gym and, hey, I might take over and become a gym leader. That'll be my personal ambition. Our friend, the gym leader Sabrina, told Chris that she certainly had potential for such an appointment. But of course, Chris had declined. Chris, I'll really miss you and all the others, but please understand that it's a small price I have to pay. That was the only part that made me sad. Perhaps I'd meet them again somewhere, someday. The world isn't as big as it seems. I just didn't know how soon. Okay, maybe it was 5 seconds later when I heard the cries of distress. They were Pokemon cries, but I still managed to pick them up, even with my dulled human senses. One was a Jolteon, an Ivysaur, and a Golduck, and they were under attack by some other Pokemon making screeching sounds. No way, I thought. Too much of a coincidence, but I just have to know! After an embarrassing moment of trying to fly off, I took a deep breath and raced towards the sound in all-out sprint. My lungs were burning for air when I finally got there. From a distance, I observed the battle. A Jolteon and Ivysaur were fighting against a Fearow and a Pidgeot. Behind the former party lay a stunned Golduck, obviously having been surprised and thumped on the head. Although his companions seemed to be on the losing end, they were determined not to give up, fighting as if their lives depended on it. Thinking of that, they probably did. The Jolteon created a wall of electricity with his Thunder Wave, giving Ivysaur time to take cover behind him and charge a Solar Beam. The birds were stunned by the sudden electrical burst, and Jolteon took the chance to roll away, allowing Ivysaur to hit the birds dead on. That was a team tactic Chris had come up with. As the two birds fell, I noticed some metal sections on their wings gleaming in the sunlight. Then I knew for certain. The birds were Stormwind and Firefly, two of my father's, Alagard's, commanders. The other Pokemon were Chris's, as well as my former comrades. The Cyborg Scyther's party and ours were not on good terms with one another, so a fight between them was inevitable, and Chris was nowhere in sight. It was crunch time. Reveal myself to help them and lose all chances of starting a new life? Or run away and sacrifice my friends to the mercy of these fiends? But even if I did try to help, what could I possibly do? Even as a Scyther, the two had beaten me to a pulp before. Unarmed and as a human, did I even stand a chance? I was backing away when I heard the voice in my mind. Victory without honor is no true victory at all. Chris had learned that from her ninja master and passed it to us. No matter what, I thought, I have to try. I was currently standing on a slightly elevated position, and the birds had their backs towards me, far too intent on thrashing their opponents. I took off on a run, building up my momentum, and just behind them, I leapt. All the birds saw were my fists flying into each of their faces. I couldn't tell which group was more surprised at their mysterious attacker or rescuer. I landed neatly on my feet and coolly turned around. "What? Who are you?" the Fearow Stormwind asked furiously. He didn't really expect me to understand, and it came out more as a high-pitched screech. However, I was still able to understand Pokemon language perfectly well. "A friend of Chris's," I answered calmly. "That's all you need to know." "Who is he?" Ivysaur asked from behind. "He says he's Chris's friend." "I don't think I've seen him here before. Riptide groaned from his spot on the floor. I don't know either, Jolteon replied, but there's something about him. His scent is sort of familiar, but I just can't seem to remember where. Hey guys, I whispered, please trust an old friend just this once, especially if you want to get out of this alive. I'll explain later. All three looked up, surprised that I could understand them, but they nodded in agreement. Wei, Shomen, Huchi! I used one of Chris's Japanese commands, dropping down to my right knee, lowering the opposite shoulder, and praying that my friends would listen. I grinned as I felt Jolteon scramble upon my shoulder. This was a move we'd practiced before. I heaved up as hard as I could, Jolteon in turn using my body as a springboard to propel himself into the air. The birds looked up, expecting an attack from above. Jolteon, however, was a decoy. I had already sprung forward and plowed into Firefly. Stormwind made the fatal mistake of turning towards his fallen comrade, so he didn't notice Jolteon's well-timed thunderbolt until it was too late, literally giving him a good shocking. Wrestling the Pidgeot was no easy task. He was clawing furiously at me with his talons and beak, but I pressed myself close against his body so he couldn't effectively hit me. I got an arm around his neck and used my free hand to pluck at his wing feathers. Such a technique was disallowed in normal competition, but I knew that it would cause a decent amount of pain to the bird. Ivysaur lashed out with his 4 vines, wrapping them around the bird's neck and wings, pulling him downwards. That was my cue to withdraw, but the Pidgeot managed to slap my face with his wing, knocking my sunglasses off and sending me sprawling to the floor. My head landed right beside Firefly's, and for a moment we were staring into each other's eyes. With a distinct look of surprise on his face, Firefly tugged at the vine so hard that Ivysaur had to let go. Bro! He yelled. We have to leave, now! What? Stormwind groaned, still trying to free his talon from Jolteon's jaws. That human just now! We have to tell the boss! Fine then! The Fearow kicked Jolteon off and retreated together with his comrade, disappearing into the distant sky. I collapsed to the ground, exhausted. I'd gotten more scratches and bruises than I could bother to count. Jolteon came over and licked a few of my wounds. He was sniffing at me too, trying to determine my scent. I wondered what Riptide sensed in me too. The blue duck had been trained by Sabrina to use his psychic talents to a greater extent, although they weren't too strong. Hey, Jolteon, I said, stroking his head. This'll be hard to believe, but it is me. Night Slice? Is that you? The electric Pokemon staggered. I nodded slowly. He pounced at me, knocking me on my back and started happily licking my face. Yo, hey, I know, I'm happy to see you too. Now, what the heck happened to you? Ivysaur asked, walking over. I know you're the descendant of a god and all, but now you're human? It's a long story, I muttered, and if you're here, where's Chris? All three immediately fell silent. That's an even longer story, Riptide finally replied. Ivysaur reached a vine out to me, handing me an object that I recognized as Chris's utility belt. I knew she always wore it, although it was hidden beneath her jacket. As I searched through it, I realized it hadn't been properly stocked. A few basic camping essentials, flashlight, pocket knife, tranquilizer pistol, some cash, and several Pokeballs. But that was it. No other electronic equipment whatsoever. I'd been hoping her cell phone would be in there too. I also noticed that it had quite a bit of mud on it and multiple scratches. The buckle was broken too, as if the belt had been torn off. What happened? I asked grimly. Jade's perspective. Jade! Wake up, you fool! 5 more minutes, Mom, I muttered. Dracia, you do it. My pleasure. A spray of water immediately hit my face. I sprang to my feet. Ah! Yeah? Where is he? Let me at him! Sit down. Firestorm shoved me back to the ground. Chris is missing! What? I glanced over towards her empty sleeping bag. You sure she didn't just go looking for firewood or something? For the entire morning? Dracia asked. The Dragonair pointed up to the sun with her tail. It's pretty darn bright already, and she's the one who's usually waking up before dawn. Besides, Chris left most of her equipment here, Firestorm muttered, poking through Chris's black jacket. Looks like she only took her belt and a few Pokemon. Then what are you guys waiting for? I asked, panicked. She could be in trouble or something. Cause we just woke up, Firestorm muttered, embarrassed. Then go look for her, dumb dragon! Idiot! The Charizard growled. He spread his wings and took off in a running start. Firestorm got about 5 feet in the air before he abruptly came crashing down, rolling head over tail and smacking down several trees in the end. Thanks for saving the trees, I muttered sarcastically. What the frig? He muttered. My wings! I suddenly feel like I've lost all my strength. Well, just get the others then. I reached to pick out Chris's remaining Pokeballs and got a terrible ache in my fingers. Ow! What is this? I yelled, dropping the Pokeball right into the embers of the night's campfire. Immediately, Wartortle burst out and furiously sprayed a jet of water at me. The second morning bath I'd gotten that day. Ow! Hot, hot, hot! What did you think you're doing, you mother... The turtle yelped, jumping up and down angrily. Hey, relax, Wartortle. I accidentally dropped it. Sorry. I flexed my fingers. My index and middle fingers simply refused to move independently of one another. Same thing for my fourth and fifth ones. I think I just caught whatever disease Chris had, I whispered, although I was still audible to the others. At least you're pretty much all right, Firestorm growled. I feel crappy, totally drained of energy. Now, since when did we become Team Screw-Up? Dracia asked. Shut up! The rest of us yelled. Chris's perspective. The first attack came without warning. Reacting instinctively, I stepped aside so that he missed. Two more Scyther came at me, forcing me to block one with my blades and kick the other away. The one I'd previously blocked attacked again, and I brought my claws up, locking mine with his. A blow from behind sent me to the ground. I rolled clear just as a claw came stabbing down into the spot I'd been lying on. I used a sweeping kick to take my opponent off his feet, sending him stumbling into another. That may have been a small victory, however the pack just kept coming. I've been trying to look for an escape route. However, everywhere I moved, it seemed to be blocked off. Little by little, I realized I was beginning to use less of my techniques and much more raw animal instinct. I dodged a slash and rammed my head into one's stomach, knocking the wind out of him. I immediately swung a claw, whacking another with the flat side of my blade. Then I did a reverse flip over two Scyther that were trying to attack me, kicking them whilst in midair. Inexperienced at using my new body, I landed slightly off balance. A shoulder bash sent me stumbling, and a wing attack that followed up sent me to my knees. My strength and stamina were rapidly draining. I wouldn't be able to go on much longer. Just when I was considering submitting myself to death, the attack stopped. I was left kneeling in the center of a circle, formed by the swarm, panting and gasping like crazy. My muscles burned terribly. I could taste the blood in my own mouth, as well as see the cuts all over my body. I didn't even bother to try and guess their numbers. What's going on? I wondered. Why haven't they finished me off yet? Slowly, a Scizor stepped past the group of Scyther and into the circle. He growled out something not literally translatable in English, but I got what he meant nevertheless. The veteran warrior was impressed by my fighting ability. He was challenging me to a one-on-one battle. And I don't think they'll take no for an answer.